Hello, hello, Arya here, Pop here once again as we continue our exploration into the question of whether or not the worst monsters are no longer hiding in the dark, but in the light of the technology beaming right into our faces. By popular demand, today's case was actually taped live on Twitch in front of an audience of many of you. And so hopefully you enjoy hearing the thoughts of your peers as I go through this case. And if you'd like to join us for future live case breakdowns on Twitch, the link will be down in the description below. Until then though, let's begin. Today, we're talking about the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German, a crime so intertwined with social media that digital platforms were a crucial part of the original investigation and may even hold the key to arresting the culprit years later. On February 14th, 2017, 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German went for a hike along the Delphi Historic Trails in Carroll County, Indiana. Delphi? Not too sure about that. Delphi. Okay, so I was correct the first time. Wonderful. Thank you, Steph. On the Valentine's Day walk, Williams took a photo of an abandoned railroad bridge and posted it to Snapchat. It was the last post she would ever make. When the girls did not meet Libby's dad that afternoon for a ride home, a search began to discover their whereabouts. At this point, those looking for the girls had very few clues besides the name of the hiking trails and the bridge that appeared in the Snapchat post. According to the Indiana State Police, the ISP, the bodies of the two teen girls were found in the woods 18 hours later, not far from that very bridge. The case was ruled a double homicide, but the details of the murders were not released to the public. How interesting. They did a podcast with Kendall Ray. Defying Gravity says, sweet babies didn't deserve that, and you're absolutely right. Casual Pumpkin says, I hope that culprit gets their guts rearranged, not in the good way. I mean, I'm right there with you. After the bodies were discovered, police went through German's phone and found a blurry photo of a middle-aged white man in a blue jacket and jeans walking towards the girls, as well as audio of an adult man saying something that included the phrase, down the hill. Down the hill. Very creepy. Police believe that the man captured in the audio file was directly involved in the deaths of the teens, though they stopped short of saying that the man in the photo and the one captured on audio are definitely the same person. What do you guys think in the chat? Are we thinking that the person in the audio is also the same person that was the same one in the photo? What are your thoughts? Ominous indeed, Martina Snow. Down the hill. People in the chat, you guys believe it's probably pretty likely that it's the same person? Somewhat says, I think the police have more video and not saying it. How interesting. That's absolutely possible, right? I mean, the police obviously have the power to retain and release as much or as little information as they want. That's definitely worth pointing out. Now, it's worth noting that ISP, the Indiana State Police, called German a hero for having the presence of mind to have the phone on and to capture video as well as audio. Andrea says, very brave. Yes, a very brave girl. Indeed. Authorities released both the picture and the audio and offered a reward for information, which at one point reached $50,000. In 2019, police released a new sketch based on the photo German took, as well as additional video from one of the girls' phones. Well, that ties in perfectly to what Somewhat said about the police potentially, holding back on some of the footage that they have, right? Because at a later point in the investigation, the police released more media that they had from the phones, which could indicate that they have even more still, kept. I'm sure they have their reasons for doing so, but definitely worth pointing out. Vampire Seal says they don't want too much evidence getting out so it won't damage the case with false things. That's also a very good counterpoint, right? We have seen, especially with a lot of active cases, online sleuths getting involved and hampering investigations or leading it down, the wrong paths. And so perhaps, again, this is preventative measures that the police are taking. But someone says it has been years, and so perhaps it should be released already. Everyone hydrate with me. Big drink with Pop, everyone. Sip, sip, everyone. Yes, sparkling aqua. Yeah, get Gatorade, Glug, whatever you want. Coffee. If you're over 21 in the US and you want a shot of liquor, I don't blame you, because none of these cases are very fun. But we continue. Despite what the Lafayette Journal and Courier reports as hundreds of thousands of tips that came in from the public, the case remained unsolved. However, a case that began online returned to social media in early 2021 when German's parents put out a plea for people to use such platforms to help catch the killer. In a public letter, German's grandparents asked people to share a recent police flyer on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or whatever social media platform you use. They suggested that getting enough people talking online might stir up new revelations in the case. Truly, Riprol, exactly the power of social media. I mean, you see it happen all the time. In this series, we always cover the dark side of the internet and technology, but there is obviously a lot of good that technology has brought us, and the power of social media, while very harmful in many ways, can also be a force for good. And so, absolutely, like Anya Townsend says, social media can help. That's how they found Gabby Petito. Absolutely. I mean, a separate case, but again, the power of social media once again. Like Lady Raven Vampire, exactly. We might as well do some good with social media. According to the grandparents' letter, if you know someone that may have been in or lived in Indiana 4 years ago, ask them to think back. Do they know anyone that started acting differently around that time? Someone knows this person. Maybe you will reach the person that can identify him. They added, the investigative team stated they only need one piece of the puzzle. Maybe you or someone you meet unknowingly has that piece. Very valid, I feel. Very valid points being brought up by the grandparents, right? I mean, in a case like this, one little break can make all the difference. The campaign stirred up renewed interest among news outlets, but it failed to uncover enough for police to determine a person of interest. Several months later, in late 2021, the investigation swung back to social media a third time when detectives with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and ISP asked for the public's help in identifying the creator of the social media profile, Anthony_Shots, a catfish account. According to authorities, the profile was used from 2016 to 2017 on Snapchat, Instagram, and possibly other social media sites. ISP said the account used images of a known male and portrayed that user as being extremely wealthy and owning numerous sports cars, adding, the creator of the fictitious profile used this information while communicating with juvenile females to solicit nude images, obtain their addresses, and attempt to meet them. Investigators said that the model pictured in the photos is not a person of interest in the investigation, and that detectives only seek information about the person who created the profile, specifically from any individuals who communicated with, met, or attempted to meet the person behind the handle. Those individuals were asked to provide context around the communication, which social media apps were used, and whether the person using Anthony_Shots attempted to meet the individual or obtain their address. It's been a few months since news broke about the Anthony_Shots profile, and no arrests have been made. Authorities have not yet explained why Anthony_Shots is connected with the two murders back in 2017, so we are left to speculate. Perhaps the two girls told their parents they were going hiking, but really one or both of them had already arranged a meeting with the person behind the catfish account. Or maybe the girls had simply mentioned their hiking plans to the person behind the account, and he sought them out from that alone. What do you guys think about this Anthony_Shots account? It's an interesting kind of like twist. Tough thing about asking about 4 years ago is that people's memories are very unreliable. Absolutely true. Someone adds, it happened to be an unusually warm day that day in February, so hiking any other day would have been weird. Steph says, that seems like an iffy connection at best. I'm assuming you mean in regards to the Anthony_Shots profile for sure. Parrothead Andy said, did the account stop being used in the same year the girls were killed? Did I hear that right? Let me double check. You are correct. The account was used between 2016 and 2017, and the crime took place in 2017. Interesting. Let's continue. All that's really clear at this point is that authorities think the perpetrator of this terrible crime is still at large. Some believe he lives in Delphi and maybe never left. He might hold a job there and walk its streets every day, hiding in plain sight. But if we've learned anything since the days of dial-up, it's to never underestimate the internet. Perhaps all that is necessary to solve the case is for more people to learn about authorities' interests in the Anthony_Shots profile. And who knows how many people the man behind the profile messaged. And who knows how many of those messages could betray his identity if the police are given access. Gab says, since it was a spot for local teens to hang out, maybe it was a case of the wrong place at the wrong time. Interesting. So you're basically saying, Gab, that you believe that it was maybe not necessarily even a premeditated murder, that maybe it was just something like it happened on a whim on the part of the killer. This is a case that began with a relatively benign social media post of an old bridge that helped lead search parties to the girls' bodies, and social media has continued to play a crucial role. If the murderer is ever handcuffed, don't be surprised if the big break comes not from testimony of someone living in Delphi, but from someone online who saw or read just enough of this guy for who he really is. And if you can't help with this case, then you can at least be safer online. Remember to always ask yourself the most important question when using social media. Do you really know who you're talking to? The research team, they always do a great job with these scripts. Let me know what you guys think of this case. I mean, like, it was a fairly short one, you know, but it's definitely an interesting one. Someone says, I bet it was a transient worker. I'm from a similar town. We would have people staying at a hotel for 3 weeks to do some work and then leave. That ties in kind of with what Gab said, how it could be someone who just happened to be there, committed the crime, and then left. I hope this is a case we get more answers for sooner rather than later, or at the very least that we get someday. I think it's definitely possible with the technology we have. But either way, I'm so glad that not only are the viewers watching this on YouTube right now here to be with me as I cover this case, but also all the lovely members of the Twitch chat. Thank you for being here. As always, if you have a case you'd like me to cover in the future, be sure to let me know. Shoot me a message, slide into my DMs. And as always, until the next time, stay safe online.